Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because today I'm going to give you guys a review for a spin-off film set in the Star Wars universe, Rogue One. It is directed by Gareth Edwards, and it stars Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Riz Ahmed, Donnie Yen, Mads Mikkelsen, Ben Mendelsohn, Alan Tudyk, and many more. And with that said, let's get started. The film is set right before the events of Star Wars A New Hope and follows Galen Erso, whose father has been taken by Orson Krennic in the Empire, and so many years later follows Galen Erso teaming up with a band of rebels for the Rebel Alliance as they go on a mission to find her father and so as find the plans to destroy this very dangerous weapon known as the Death Star and give hope to the galaxy. This review will contain some spoilers for the movie, so if you haven't seen Rogue One yet, go watch the movie and then see yourself right back here. Kicking things off with my thoughts on the movie, I was really excited for Rogue One when it was first announced because it was Star Wars, and it's the very first Star Wars movie to not really be a core film in the Skywalker saga, but rather it's a spin-off film. And it's also not involved around this whole conflict between the Jedi and the Sith, so it's a very different kind of film. And I was really looking forward to it. And rewatching the movie recently, I loved Rogue One. It's great. I love the focus on the struggle between the rebellion versus the Imperials. And I loved a lot of the story moments, especially with the overemphasis on war and what that is like in the galaxy. It is a really great film and a great addition to the Star Wars franchise. Kicking things off, I love how we start off with Galen Erso as a young child, and so is Galen Erso, and we see that Orson Krennic came to get Orson Krennic to go back to working for the Empire so that they can finish this weapon that they're trying to create. I like how they kick things off there, and then it gives us a little flash forward where Jin apparently is in Imperial custody, and we see a lot of these other characters here. Like we see that Bodhi Rook is apparently defecting from the Empire, and he gets caught by Saw Gerrera and his forces. And we also have Cassian Andor. We meet him on this other planet who gets information about this weapon. I really like how the movie kicks things off, even though it feels like we could have had more development from some side of things before we got to that opening. But nevertheless, I like that right from the get-go, you got the idea on what they're trying to accomplish, and that is to turn on the Empire and let them all know that there is a weapon and that there are plans for them to destroy this weapon. So from the get-go, you got the stakes, you got the urgency, and that side of things made this movie a very engaging watch. The cast here is great. I really like Felicity Jones as Galen Erso. I think she's one of the best characters in this film. And I really like Diego Luna as Cassian Andor, and I'm really excited to see his show coming out on Disney Plus in just about a month. I really like the characters. I think the actors do a good job, especially Donnie Yen as Chirrut Imwe, who is one of the standout characters where I love certain moments with him, especially...
I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me. And the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me.
And Riz Ahmed is good as Bodhi Rook, especially delivering great performances later on, like in The Sound of Metal. Great actor. They got a great cast here. And even Mads Mikkelsen, really terrific actor. And I really liked him as Galen Erso. And Ben Mendelsohn, he does a good job at playing villainous characters, and it's no different here. I really liked him as Orson Krennic. He's a good bad guy in this movie, and I really think that the cast here does a really good job at playing these characters. They're all really nice to watch on the screen. And this was such a different kind of Star Wars movie because, like I said before, it doesn't really focus on the conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. Every Star Wars movie, from the originals, the prequels, and the sequels, all focus on that conflict between those two in some shape or form. But this one doesn't really do that. There's no real Jedi in this movie, but you do have a Sith Lord in the form of Darth Vader, who is really awesome in this movie with some really awesome sequences that I will get into later. And so as how this movie focuses on war, and it really shows the struggles that the rebellion is going through in their conflict against the Empire. And I really like to see that kind of side of things because throughout the movie, you get so much focus and so much sequences that really shows you that this wasn't really a nice time period for the galaxy with how the Empire took over everything and that they're at the height of their abilities and control. And you really want the rebellion to win, especially because you see how these things will play out later with the original trilogy. But I love how this movie picks up the pieces, how it shows you what happened right before we see the start of A New Hope. And it really adds up to that so well to make it a very worthy addition to the Star Wars franchise. Rogue One, in a way, really serves as a war film, especially with the action sequences and our characters here. They're not quite as powerful as, say, Luke Skywalker or Anakin, but you really want our characters to succeed because even though they don't have as much development as they could have, you want the rebellion to win because of the struggle and because of what they're up against and because of how we know how powerful the Death Star truly is. And now that we know of this weapon and what it's capable of, that gives us even more tension for us to know how these things will play out, but also that we want our characters to win. And so along the way, Galen Erso meets Cassian Andor, and I really like Alan Tudyk as K2SO. He's funny, his comedic timing's on point, and he's really fun to watch. He's one of my favorite characters in this movie, especially for scenes like these.
Did you know that wasn't me? There are a lot of explosions for two people blending in.
Freeze! Right there!
You're right. I should just wait on the ship. I am taking them to imprison them in prison.
He is taking us to...
Quiet! I've got a bad feeling about...
Hey.
Quiet. What? Your behavior, Galen Erso, is continually unexpected. There's one. Ah, well.
And so they go to Jeddah, where the Empire is occupying that whole land, trying to find Bodhi Rook, who defected from the Empire, because now they gotta find him, because he has information on the Death Star, and the Empire doesn't want any loose ends. They don't want this thing to go out in the open. And not just that, too, but I do love how throughout their time in Jeddah, we see them encounter characters like Chirrut Imwe, Baze Malbus, and just seeing these people just struggle, where you really see just how these people have felt and the struggles they go through because of the Empire and their rule over the galaxy. And it really does a good job at showing you the Empire's rule over all of these worlds and how that negatively impacted everything. And that was serviced really well, especially with how the end of Revenge of the Sith shows you that the Empire truly starts to take over everything. And now that Palpatine's grand plan can go into motion, Rogue One really explores the rule of the Empire throughout this movie and how powerful and dangerous they are. And so as showing the struggle that the people go through because of this, and that really does service these characters and their mission so well, because it gives us more reasons for us to care for our rebel characters to defeat the Empire, and it makes it even more satisfying when you watch the end of the original trilogy, especially when they defeat them in the end. So we had a cool fight sequence. There's some great sequences throughout this movie. And then Saw Gerrera and his men, they capture Jyn and them. And we finally get to see Jyn reunite with Saw Gerrera for the first time since she was a kid. And that brings me to one of my issues with the movie. It's that while I like the cast performances as the characters, they don't have as much development for me to feel as emotionally attached. I am attached to them in a way because I want to see the characters get the plans and overthrow the Empire so that the future events can play out. And this movie didn't really develop as many of these characters as much. We don't know too much about Baze. We don't know too much about Bodhi Rook. We don't know too much about Chirrut. And I would have liked more development from our characters, especially as you have the opening with Jyn as a child. And then the next time you see her, she's already a grown adult who knows how to fight and all of these things. She's already in an Imperial camp. And it feels like, aside from just mentioning like some moments of her childhood and life in between the opening and this next scene, I wanted more of that. And I feel like this movie could have explored these characters and fleshed them out more for me to be a little bit more emotionally invested in them. And Jyn and Saw Gerrera finally see the message from Galen Erso that tells Jyn that there is a weapon out there and that there are plans to destroy the Death Star. And I really like the sequence. It was one of the few emotional moments out of this movie where Jin finally sees, in a sense, even if it's a hologram, her father, and just all these things, in that he purposely put something in there so that they can hopefully one day destroy this dangerous weapon of the Empire's. And I really like that sequence. And then it is followed up by a beautiful visual shot throughout a few minutes where Orson Krennic and Tarkin, they use the Death Star and they blow up Jeddah, where our characters escape and Saw Gerrera stays behind, decides he doesn't want to run anymore, and he sacrifices himself on the planet as it gets destroyed. And the way the Death Star, you see it destroy the planet, it's breathtaking. It's beautiful despite the context of the scene. And it's a very visually stunning film. It's very well helmed by cinematographer Greg Fraser, who's given us stuff like Dune Part 1, The Batman, and even The Mandalorian.
This is the way.
And from that sequence, you see just how powerful this weapon is. You may have seen it happen before, but you've never fully seen that much power. You've never seen this much of a planet in minutes get destroyed by a weapon as powerful as the Death Star. You've seen a planet get destroyed in New Hope, but you never saw like the point of view of the people on that planet as it gets destroyed. This time you do, and it really shows you how dangerous the weapon is. You want the characters to win, and they know just how dangerous and powerful it really is. And that really kicks things in motion for later so that there's even more stakes at play. And so the characters go to Edu and they find Galen Erso there, and Cassian Andor is covertly assigned to assassinate Galen Erso. And we know that that isn't necessarily what should happen, and especially that Jin is the daughter of Galen and hasn't seen him in a while. And we know this was going to cause some tension for our characters, and I love that Cassian chooses not to go through with it. And so Orson Krennic and some Imperial officers and stormtroopers, they come down to Edu to congratulate Galen and the crew for the success of that. The Death Star is operational. However, he notices that there's something in place that allows the Death Star to be destroyed, and it causes in a very sad moment where you have all the scientists line up and Galen reveals to them that he's the one that placed, and you see that Galen comes out as he's responsible, but all the scientists get murdered anyway for it. And then it leads to another emotional moment in the scene where the rebel bombers came in to blow up their Imperial base on Edu. You see all of our characters there, and Jin finally reunites with Galen in his last few moments of life, and how she finds out about Cassian's plan to assassinate him, even though he didn't go through with it. And Orson Krennic eventually goes off, leaving Edu, and gets away. And we see that it's like they finally reunited in his final moments, knowing they know of the plan, they know of this vulnerability, and they now have a shot at trying to destroy this weapon of theirs. And so I really like that sequence. It's a really heartbreaking moment in this movie, and I really just feel the stakes and the tension at play. And as the movie goes on, there's even more tension that just increases the more the movie progresses. So Galen tragically dies, and the squad leaves Edu, and then Orson Krennic goes to Mustafar, to Darth Vader's castle. And it's always great to see Darth Vader in any shape or form. James Earl Jones is fantastic as the voice of Vader. So no matter when in the Star Wars franchise this project is set in, it's always nice to see Vader, and it's just great to see him talk to Orson Krennic about this weapon and just what's been going on and how it comes down in the end where Vader's like, do not fail him again. Great scene between those two characters. And then we see Jyn Erso and the squad. They go back and they're like, we got to go to Scarif because that's where we can find the plans to destroy this Death Star. And most of them choose not to. But Rogue One, they decide to defy orders and they go there anyway. And it leads to an awesome third act, one of the best in the franchise, up there with the original trilogy and Revenge of the Sith, where we see our squad. They go to Scarif, they go in disguise, they got a bunch of people with them, and that's where they finally get the name of Rogue One. Obviously, the movie has a much darker tone than most Star Wars projects. It's up there with the likes of Empire Strikes Back and Revenge of the Sith. But it's so awesome to watch this third act unfold, where our rebel characters, they go to Scarif. Jyn, Cassian, and K-2SO go in as disguises to get inside this base and find the Death Star plan so they can get them to the rebellion. All while our characters wait back as they start an attack. The third act is awesome. It's the best part of the film, and I love just watching all these sequences unfold of all of our characters being ready for whatever is going to come, and it's super exciting. And he has a really awesome space battle up in the sky, so you have what's happening on land and also what's happening in the space. It's awesome, super cool to watch, and I love how we see the stakes where this is where our characters are really in danger, not just when Jedha was being destroyed, but so as in this moment, because this means they can either make it out alive or they're going to die trying. So the Rebel Alliance, they attack an Imperial garrison so that they can get the Empire away from the base, so that they can give Jyn, Cassian, and K-2SO time to get the plans, send them to the rebellion, and get out of there. Really cool. The action sequence is awesome, and it really feels like a war between the Rebel Alliance and the Empire. It's super cool, especially with the space battle in the air, where they're like, we're going to help Rogue One and co. find a way to get the plans, and they'll do whatever it takes to do it. And I love how just crazy it is. It's awesome to see all these characters, from Bodhi to Chirrut to Baze to Jyn to even just Rebel characters from the Rebel Alliance. Just they're out in the battlefield, and it's really awesome, especially with the costumes looking cool. The stormtroopers look great, and so as the fight sequences, they're very well shot, well visualized, and really cool. And Michael Giacchino has a very good score with this one. It's very underrated of his. And if you realize this, if you do research online, this was actually a reshot version of the third act, because originally the third act was going to be a lot different than what we had in the end, where in that third act, a lot of the characters lived, except for K-2SO, and sadly K-2SO dies as the stormtroopers are coming in, and so he closes the door, shuts it down so that Jyn and Cassian don't get arrested and they can continue to try to get the plans. It was a very sad way to go out. K-2SO is great, so it's sad to see K-2SO just go out like that, but K-2SO went out like a hero. But in this third act, not only does K-2SO die, but so does the entire Rogue One crew. Everybody dies one by one. Bodhi Rook dies when a bomb gets thrown into the ship he's in, and then Chirrut dies trying to get the master switch open, and then Baze dies in action as a grenade goes off with the stormtroopers hand holding it. A lot of these characters die, and then it gets to Jyn and Cassian, where Orson Krennic ambushes them, and how it's like, I'm Jyn, I'm the daughter of Galen Erso, and Cassian comes in and shoots Krennic, wounding him, and then Jyn and Cassian get away. They transmit the plans to the rebellion. They find out the plans, and then up in the air, the rebels from the ships, they crash two Star Destroyers down onto the shield so that they can destroy the shield protecting Scarif, so that they can get the transmission and continue their plan. And then it continues to go off the rails, where eventually, with Grand Moff Tarkin watching from the Death Star, he fires down at Scarif, destroying the planet, where Orson Krennic dies, and then Jyn and Cassian, knowing they succeeded and that there's pretty much no way out for them, they are on the beach, and they hug one another, and they die as the planet just gets destroyed. So a lot of those Rebel Alliance fighters lost their lives getting the plans. And it makes sense with the story, because it's like, if they did survive, where were they in the original trilogy? So I feel like I was shocked by the ending that they all died. It's a very crazy and wild move, and I think that actually paid off really well. This is one of the instances where reshoots actually benefit the film even more, because I really wouldn't have imagined an ending to Rogue One where a lot of them survived. So I really like the idea where most of them died trying to get these plans sent to the rebellion. And so the planet blows up, and then the rebels got it. They're trying to escape the ship, and then a door stops moving, and the hallway gets darker, and you see Darth Vader. He takes out his lightsaber, and one of my favorite scenes in this movie and one of the darkest scenes in Star Wars history, where Vader ignites his lightsaber and he massacres all those rebels in the hallway, whether it's by lightsaber or the Force. It was brutal. It's dark. It shows how menacing and strong Vader really is with the Force and the lightsaber. And so he kills all of them, but then another rebel gets the plans, and then they get away. The ship detaches from the main ship, and then Darth Vader watches as the ship flies away. And then it ends where Princess Leia... It's nice to see Leia, even though I feel like Lucasfilm is being way too obsessed with CGIing the characters to make them look like the actor that played him. At times it worked, especially for just short moments like this, but I feel like I need them to actually just recast characters as different actors rather than using CGI to make them look like, say, Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill or Peter Cushing. So it's cool to see Leia. It's a nice way to wrap things up, and it really leaves us right from where A New Hope begins. So it's a great way to end the film, and that's Rogue One. All in all, I loved Rogue One. It's a great spin-off movie. I love the darker tone, the emphasis on war, and seeing the conflict between the rebels and the Empire, and I like the cast. I love the visuals and the action sequences, and it has a really underrated score by Michael Giacchino. It's not my favorite movie in the Star Wars franchise. I do think the characters could have used a lot more development. It's not quite the best-paced movie in the franchise, and it's not quite as rewatchable as some others because of the dark tone and how it resolves things. But I still love this movie nonetheless. It's a great addition to the Star Wars franchise and one of my favorite projects to come out of the Disney era of Star Wars. So in the end, I'm going to give Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, an A-. I love this movie. Rogue One is a worthy addition to the Star Wars franchise, and I love the focus on the Rebels versus the Empire, and I love the setting of right before A New Hope and how it bridges the gap to A New Hope to let those events kick into high gear. Really enjoy this movie. It's not perfect. I have my issues with it, but we still got a great movie in the end. And I cannot wait for that Andor show to come out on Disney Plus with Diego Luna. That's going to be exciting. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And stay tuned. I have a review for The Gray Man coming up soon, as that comes out a few days on Netflix. And I have a potential review for Solo, A Star Wars Story. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for those two. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.
If you continue to fight,